Okay, we have made some PCs before on this channel, and I might have overused the word ultimate, but if there ever was an ultimate PC, then this is one of them over here. Now this features 64 core CPU, 128 threads, 256 gigabytes of RAM, ECC RAM, 2 RTX 3090s, and absolutely loads of PCIe Gen 4 storage. That's just like the fastest you can get. So basically, this PC is not mine, and this is for, let me just whip up my French and then see how I can pronounce this correctly. Damien Guilleminot, or Damien Guilleminot, who is actually a creature artist and an art director. So you might have seen The Lion King. He designed or sculpted the Scar and Simba cub. He did the sculpting of aliens in Alien Covenant. He worked on the main creatures of some of the Marvel movies and so on. So he's a very talented artist and a creator. And he reached out to me, and we've been talking backwards and forwards for quite a long time now. And he said, look, I just want the PC that's the best, and I want 2 RTX 3090s in there. So that's exactly what we did. And in a moment, we're gonna scroll back time and you're gonna see the build process of this PC. But this is one of the most interesting, complicated, longest PC builds I have done, just because it's so different from any of the usual DIY gaming or creative PCs that you have on the normal prosumer platform. This is completely different. It's absolutely insane. So let's roll back time. We're going to build the PC, and then we're going to come back with some of the benchmarks, and then let's have a look at a little bit how this PC performs. Before you double tap your right thumb, let me tell you about the video sponsor, B&H. When you're looking for your next creator tools, I highly recommend you check out B&H and their wide range of products. Whether it's photo, audio, video, or PC Mac related products, especially when you're looking for a GPU for your PC build. And don't forget the deal zone, where deals change daily and you might find some killer deals. B&H gives you the confidence of shopping with easy 30-day returns, award-winning customer service, and competitive prices. Spread the cost of products with B&H Paybu card that offers special financing and special tax saving on selected products. Check out B&H and the latest deals in the description below. So, I hope you're excited, because I know you've seen the build. I haven't. I'm super excited. This is gonna be absolutely insane. Okay, this is gonna be the biggest build we've done on this channel, so hit that subscribe button, like the video if you haven't yet. But hey, so we're gonna start with the motherboard. This is like the motherboard of all motherboards. It's absolutely huge, and it's got like everything you want in there. Let's get this out. Also, on the bottom of the motherboard, we're gonna have to get out a few more things. All the little screws and things. I'm just gonna put it underneath my iFixit kit. It actually comes with an M.2 expansion card, 4 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 expansion card slots on this expansion card. Okay, look at this. 7 PCIe 4.0 slots. They're all X16 slot. They're all directly connected to the CPU, because the CPU is gonna be absolutely insane as well. 8 DIMM slots. They're all going to be occupied, and absolutely featureful I/O over here. 10 gigabit Ethernet. I think there's even 2 of them, which is insane. We've got a nice back plate over here as well to protect it, you know, all of it. It says over here, built for pros. So then you might be asking, what CPU are you using for this build? Pause for effect. This is the AMD Threadripper Pro 3995WX. It's got 64 cores, 128 threads. It's got 128 PCIe lanes. This CPU on its own, this over here, this little guy, costs more than my 12900K PC build, okay? This CPU on its own is about 5-6 grand, depending how much, you know, whether you get it on a deal or not. If you're a pro and you need some serious 3D rendering, then there is nothing like that on the market. But we do need this special Torx screwdriver. Let's get this CPU installed, and this is probably the most difficult CPU installations you can do on any of the platforms. So you have to open the screws in a certain order. 3, 2, 1. Next off, we're gonna open that guy over here. We're gonna take our CPU out. Okay, here it is. Look at this. It's such a big chungus of a... Let me just show you how big it is. Look at the comparison between like an i7 here. This is 12700K. It's like 2.5 times the size of this. This is insane. So we're gonna slide this plastic cover out. We're gonna slide our Threadripper Pro in. Just like that. It goes all the way to the end, making sure that this is not gonna fall down. There is a little spring that keeps it up, making sure that we have gone into the rails of the CPU. Then we're gonna pull this out. Look at that. Insane amount of little connectors over there. So we're just gonna push this down. Boom. So that goes down. And now this goes down. Closing it goes like this. We'll close number 1. You screw it down until you hear a click. There we go. Click. Our CPU has been installed. Just double checking. Click, click, click. So basically this makes sure that you've got perfect tension on the CPU, because you have to have equal tension. So all of those pins and everything, nothing's like a little bit off or not connected, or connected a little bit more than others. It needs to be equal. Next off, what we're gonna be doing is installing some RAM. And this time the RAM comes in a plastic bag like that. What do we have over here? Unfortunately, these are green sticks of RAM. But how much do you have? 128 gigabytes? No, it's too little. 256 gigabytes of ECC RAM running at 3200 mega transfers a second. That's insane. So usual like consumer platforms have like dual channel memory, whether it's Ryzen or Intel, systems. You've got 2 channels, of memory. There might be 2 slots per channel and so on. That's why you sometimes need to have 4. And then AMD Threadripper has 4 channel memory, which is, much, much more. Now this guy over here has 8 channel memory. So basically each slot has its own dedicated memory channel, which is super insane, just absolutely ridiculous. So let's open up the slots and start occupying them. So next what we're going to be doing is installing the M.2 drives. Okay, so this motherboard has 3 M.2 slots built into the motherboard, like actual on the board. It also comes with the expansion card. And Damien, who's going to have this PC, actually wants 3 separate drives. OS drive, then a project drive, and then a big like archive, or where your assets are on basically drive, something that you're working on and so on. So for the OS system, we want to have the fastest drive possible, which is the Western Digital Black SN850. Now this has very good random read writes and is the fastest OS drive you can get. Now it might not be the fastest in sustained reads and write speeds, but for OS we don't need that. So we just wanted the fastest ones for the OS, which is this one over here, 2 terabytes in size. Then for the actual projects that you're actively working on, we have the Seagate FireCuda 530 SSD. So this one is 4 terabytes in size. This is the maximum capacity it comes in, and that's where all the projects are going to lie on, active projects. And because of the very good terabytes written specs, you can write very big files on it and take them off. 70% of the drive can be rewritten every single day, and the sustained read and write speeds, or sustained kind of performance of the drive, is very, very good, on top of the class, better than Samsung drives and so on. That's why we're going with this drive, very high quality drive. And then for the actual big assets drive, we wanted something a little bit larger than 4 terabytes. Now, at the time of me making this, just a few days ago, Sabrent Rocket actually released an 8 terabyte M.2 SSD, which is super fast as well, and it's not QLC flash. We could have used that one, but I don't think this is on sale yet. So what we're going to be doing is utilizing the M.2 expansion card that came with the motherboard. And because this occupies 4 slots, we're going to add 4 2 terabyte drives of Seagate FireCuda 530 SSDs. We're going to put them all in there. We're going to pull them together. So we're going to have 8 terabytes of ridiculously fast storage. Let's start with that. So this in my hand over here is 12 terabytes of ridiculously fast NVMe storage. 12 terabytes. Also, these little square standoffs, remember, if you don't have the flash chips on the other side as well, it's good to have the standoff little sticker in there as well. So let's put that one down. Now this secondary drive, the FireCuda 530, actually has the flash on both sides, which means that we're not going to be putting the sticker down there. We're just going to get another standoff from here. And I'm actually going to install the third standoff over here as well, even though our drive's not going to go there. But then the spare screws are not going to go missing in there because I've already opened up the packet and there's two inside. So put the screw in there, even though there's no drive going to be in there. So you do have an expansion slot. If you wanted to add extra drive in there for some reason, if you need any more than that, you can do that. So plug in that M.2 in, push that down, and that's gonna be it. Now this expansion card. So sometimes what happens is that you might get this expansion card, but the thing is, because you only have limited PCIe lanes from your CPU to your PCIe slots, meaning that you're probably going to lose some other features on the motherboard. But because we have 128 PCIe lanes, that means that we can easily just slot this into one of those PCIe X16 slots and have all of these connected to the CPU without any bottlenecks or any like features that we're going to be losing. Just slotting 4 in here. Basically what this card does is slot this X16 slot into 4 X4 slots, and then we have like direct access to all of these M.2s. Okay, that card is ready. We're gonna put that one on the side. Even though the CPU is 280 watts TDP, we're still gonna go air cooled, and we have our trusted Noctua cooler. This is the NHU 14S, but a TR4 SB3 version of it, which basically means that the bottom plate of the cooler is absolutely huge to cover the whole IHS of this. But you might be saying, oh, you know, brown fans, that's gonna be disgusting. Well, I'm glad to bring you the good news. We're not gonna be using the brown fans. We have replacement black fans here. Noctua recommends that you're gonna put like 9 dots on the heat spreader. Boom, 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 and then another 4 in the middle. But the cool thing, or just the different thing about this motherboard, is that this socket is actually twisted 90 degrees. Usually the RAM slots are on like left and right side, but here they're on the top and bottom. It's more like a server layout. That means that our cooler is gonna lay on top like this, and it's gonna take the air from the bottom and blow it out from the top rather than from, you know, right to left or left to right kind of airflow. Let's put some thermal paste on here then. Line it up with the screw holes. So now let's screw it in, but doing few turns on each side. So let's install these anti-vibration pads for these corners of the cooler. But before we're gonna put the fans on the cooler, we have something else that's gonna look really cool and make this look a little bit cooler than, you know, just usual silver heatsink. Basically, this is called the Noctua Chromax cover, or it's called NAH6 Chromax black heatsink cover. So the installation for this is very simple. Basically, underneath this black heatsink, there is this little gray type of thing, and this is just gonna slot on the top over here. There we go. And then the steel clip goes over here, making sure it goes on the second clip. There we go. And then this just literally slides to the top. Look at that. Much better. Now, very important to make sure that your fans have been actually mounted the right way as well. So basically the intake's gonna be from here and then out from the back. So making sure that our fan is sitting right here, like that. And then this is exhausting. Pants, I put these clips the wrong way. Yeah, before putting the heatsink cover on, make sure that you put the fans first. The fans actually need to be installed first. Very good. looking very nice and sleek. So now these fan headers over here, we're gonna put into CPU fan and CPU fan optional. Get this here, hide those cables underneath there. Now let's move this motherboard on the side for a second. Next up, we need to prepare this case. So this is Fractal Meshify 2 XL. It's a huge case, as you can see from this angle. It's not even fitting in here. The reason we have this case is because the motherboard we have is a huge motherboard. It's an E-ATX size motherboard, and like even larger than some of the other ETX. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the largest E-ATX size motherboards, meaning that there's not a lot of cases that kind of support that type of size, meaning that you might have the fittings for the size of the motherboard, but you can't route the cables, or it's just going to be very difficult to get that sorted. So back panel off, top panel off, take the other side panel off, front panel came off as well. It's pretty cool front panel here, as you can see. On the back, we're also taking this bottom panel off here. And we're going to be taking the front hard drive cage off, actually, because hopefully we can fit a 140mm fan in here, maybe even 2 if we can fit them in here, just because we can get more airflow pulled from the bottom to the top, which would help like the cooling and positive pressure inside the case, like that. We can actually take the top fan cover off, because we're going to be exhausting out from the top, which means we don't need a filter on the top, because we want all the dust that is inside just be blown out. But we do have replacements for all of these fans. What we have is a little bit of an upgrade. We have Arctic. These are the Arctic P14WPM PSD A-RGB fans, which are 0 RGB, and they go up to 1900 RPM, and they're basically very affordable, but also one of the best in terms of the performance if you want 140mm A-RGB fans. So the next stop is to be replacing the front fans and the back fans in the case. So a little time lapse of how we are going to do it. What I like about this case is that so far everything that is thumb screws, actually you can unscrew by thumb. Sometimes you have a thumb screw, but actually what happens is you need to use a screwdriver to get it out because the screws are too tight. Not in here. I actually do need to get the power supply out, and just to see like how far these cables go on the power supply and how big it is, just because I need to see how far can I move this hard drive cage, or if I even have to remove it. For power supply, we're using EVGA 1600 watt power supply. And if you're thinking, oh, isn't a 1000 watt power supply enough? Well, not really. At full on utilization, this PC is consuming more than 1000 watts of power. Yep, we're gonna have to pull this hard drive cage out as well. By the way, if you have a look at the connector of this is a completely different connector than your usual kettle lead in here. Can you see this guy? Look at that special cable to get this connected. It's like a industrial power thing that you're gonna plug in. Hey, power. I think we're just gonna keep one fan on the bottom here, because it's just gonna get too close to the power supply and all of the cables that we're gonna have to like kind of fit in here. Okay, fans have been installed, but one thing I'd like to say is, Arctic, if you're making these fans and they're black fans, give us black screws, and also give us screws that have bigger heads than what are included, because all of the included heads go in between the actual lines where the screws have to be. They don't have like a perfect hold on the fans. So, you know, if Arctic is watching this, maybe we can get this improved. We do need some extra standoffs on the motherboard tray on the back here, just because this over here has been configured for ATX size boards. We just have to make sure from the motherboard that we're putting them in the right place. Interestingly, we actually have to take one extra standoff off from here as well, because we don't have anything on the motherboard in there. So we're gonna move that one over to this one. Now this is why it's good to have the iFixit kit, because you have these little like hexagon or Allen keys ends, what they call like wrenches, so you can actually screw down these standoffs. And it's the same on the top here. We don't have a standoff in there because that's literally where our RAM slot's gonna be. So this is actually gonna go in here. So a little mistake if you're doing this, and maybe you want to install this back fan afterwards. It's a little bit easier to put or plug in, you know, the motherboard or slide it in when you don't have the back fan. Okay. The motherboard is in, and as you can see, those like little grommets on the back of the motherboard where usually, you know, you'd bring some cables in. Obviously this motherboard completely covers it, and I can't get anything underneath either. So what we're gonna have to do is pull all the cables in from the bottom and from the top to plug in here. Okay, look at that. This motherboard needs quite a bit of extra PCIe power. As you can see on the bottom here, we have two 6-pin PCIe power slots. Then we have another 8-pin PCIe power slot for, you know, the PCIe slots and all sort of stuff that's going on in here. Then we have the 24-pin ATX power on the side, and then two CPU powers, you know, 4+4 EPS connectors on there, as well as graphics cards. We have two RTX 3090s that both require PCIe cables separately. That's why we have this EVGA 1600 watt power supply, because we have all of these VGA powers and CPU powers. As you can see, we have 9 VGA 8-pin power like cables all together. So 4 for our GPUs, then extra 3 for the motherboard, as you can see there. And then we have extra 2 if we want to add anything extra that we need extra later. And because this is a very high power workstation, right? Then the higher the workstation power you have on your computer, the more efficient power supply you should be getting. Obviously this is 80 plus platinum, which means that no matter what loads you're on, it's going to be very, very efficient because the percentage of the power supply is efficient. What I mean is, if you have a lower end system that consumes maybe only 450 watts and it's 90 watt power efficient, then you're not going to lose so much power between 90% power efficiency or 80 watt power efficiency. At that lower power consumption, it doesn't make a difference. But if your whole system draws more than 1000 watts of power, then the 80 or 90 watt power efficiency can be like 100 watts or even more, depending, you know, the usage and, you know, obviously the power supply ratings and so on. Let's get plug-in. Okay, I've already found a really good thing about this power supply, because this is meant for workstations and so on. Every single PCIe like power supply cable here, at least the first ones in these punch, don't have a daisy chained another cable coming out of it, because they know that you're probably going to run some high-end graphics cards. The power cables are 150 watts rated. So you're not going to run like, you know, 2 cables into RTX 3090 expecting like 300 watts going to go through of each of these cables. No, you're going to run 2 separate ones, 150 watt each, plus 75 watts from the PCIe slot. So that's good, just eliminates like any mistakes possibly that can be made. Although I'm looking at the other bunch of cables, and then there's separate cables over there as well. So that, you know, if you want to get some daisy chained power cables that you know are not going to use that much power, then you can. But I'm just going to run every single cable separately, just so that I know I'm not going to be limited to you know, this on the power supply. Okay, one thing I don't understand is, like, if you buy this high-end power supply but then you get silver screws with it, like, can't we have black screws with it? Why do we have to have silver screws with it? Let your light shine in this, I know if it's raining. Let your light shine. Good job I have one ATX extension cable over here, because the ATX power supply cable isn't long enough to route it like from the top to the side. So I'd have to run it like somehow from the top over here, like behind the graphics cards or something like that. I think that would look kind of odd, so I'd still like to go all the cables, you know, from the side to go from the top. So I'll have to use one extension cable, which I have over here. So good job I have one of those.
You get the picture like Nikon. This a result of my icon. Jesus the truth, and now we got the light on. This is not music, this ministry, yeah. I'm shining bright till they finish me, yeah. If you take
okay, one thing is a little bit kind of awkward, you know, is like this 24-pin ATX, as you can see over here. Basically, I'm trying to get it over there, but it's a little bit dodgy just because it's gonna start pushing a little bit on the top RAM slot, because the top DIMM slot there is very, very close to the end. So I don't want to put anything in there. Also, I don't want to have anything in front here to really restrict the airflow out from the case. So I'm gonna have to run this down from the side. Another option would be to get this like nice panel to come off. Then you're going to see lots of random cables and it's not going to look as nice as this one. So I think the best option is really to just use it like that on the side. I might drill a hole through the case like over here and over there, just so that I could actually like tie it in there, which you're not going to see really afterwards. Now the other thing is that we have to figure out is for the graphics cards, because the graphics cards are going to go like SLI, or they're going to be NVlinked together. They're gonna have to be 4 slots apart, but because of the cooler of the CPU is oriented this way, meaning it's gonna pull air from here, I want to have the graphics cards as far away from the CPU cooler as possible, because the VRAM of the graphics card is on the back of the plate. So if you use applications that use a lot of the VRAM, the back plate is going to get warm and you're going to just pull warm air through. Probably going to slot it on the bottom slot over here if we can, and then the next one like above there. So we're going to just check that out now. So for the graphics cards, we're going to use the Asus TUF graphics cards. These are the RTX 3090s. The TUF at the moment was in a very good deal. So we only paid, well, saying only, I think 1,700 quid for the card. So 2 of them were 3.4 grand. Very good price. I'm going to leave these in the description as well if you want to pick them out or check the latest pricing, because these are very good RTX 3090s. Like, they're going to run very cool, very quiet. So let's see if this is going to go in there like that.
Why you tripping, baby? You know you ain't really got tired. Fuss and fight no more. Why you tripping, baby? You know you excited. Acting like you know what's up, but you ain't psychic. Told you nothing going down, but you ain't like it. I told you nothing going down when you excited. So if you want a song, go and get the one. Show me the money, get the money, let's go.
I had to like configure and try a little few different things, how to slot it in and what's like the best way in terms of like the cooling, and because we have a 4-slot NVlink over here, and then the M.2 expansion card, like where you're gonna put it, like are you gonna put it on the top and on the bottom? So basically the best way at the moment, how I can see it, is the bottom graphics card goes all the way to the bottom slot, so the bottom one on the motherboard. Then we have 4 slots above. We have this one, then we have 1 free slot over there, and then the M.2 card expansion slot on the first one. Now, why I put this on the first one is because I want to have a little bit of a gap over here so we can cool the GPUs nicely, which I think this is the best one. In fact, I'm actually going to take the M.2 expansion card slot out, just because I'm not sure how the Windows configuration and BIOS is going to see it at first, like light up, because they're all 2 terabyte cards, and then I have SSDs, that's what I mean. And then I have a 2 terabyte one for the OS over there as well. So I don't want to mix them up, or the computer think that I'm gonna install the OS actually on one of those cards rather than on that one. So I'm gonna take this one off and we're gonna install that very last thing when Windows has already been installed. But I just wanted to check that all of these are lining up and the graphics cards are nicely being cooled. So this is where we're actually gonna take these SLI connectors off, and we're going to put this in there. Let's see which way is it going to go. Get these screws slightly loose, just so that I can line this up perfectly. There we go. Look at that. This also makes it a little bit more like solid and rigid, because there is extra like kind of connecting point. I do have a Sag Bracket as well that we're going to put there in the end. That's going to hold like kind of both of these cards up. Okay, before I'm going to plug anything else in, what I want to know is I want to make sure that everything is working and nothing is unplugged or anything. So basically plugging in the graphics cards. We've got the CPU fans on over there. We've got CPU power in, all the PCIe power in, motherboard power in, everything here. We have a power button on the actual motherboard. We can turn the PC on even with there. I've got a cable plugged in the back over there for the display port for the top graphics cards. I'm not gonna plug these chassis fans in for now because I just wanna make sure that everything is working and we're getting a post. Power plug, that's in. Double checking everything. Okay, we've got a power button over there. So, okay, something's happening over there. Let's have a look if we're gonna get the picture out. Okay, finally, new CPU installed. Please enter setup configure F1. Okay, let's have a look. Threadripper Pro 3995WX, 252 gigabytes of DDR4. Looks like everything is plugged in and everything's all good. So that's good news. Now we're gonna plug in the rest of the fans and everything else, and then we're gonna see if we can install Windows to this guy over here. Okay, so the last point when you actually saw me was probably about a week ago, and there's a few things that's happened to this that I need to like kind of, you know, explain what's going on over here. So basically what I figured out is with this motherboard, this is not really a PC first. It's a server first, then a PC. So basically a PC is attached to the servers. For example, if you want to adjust any of the fan curves on the motherboard, then you need to access the server. And I had a right pain trying to get to access on that because it's completely different. There's no instructions online how to actually access this, how does it work, and so on. So finally, in the end, I managed to call my friend Chris, who managed to figure out some of the IP issues I had. But then also thanks to Marco from Asus store, not even related to Asus, because I tried my Asus contacts and they were all like, no idea what's going on. Thanks to Marco, who's from Asus store, you know, the NAS that I'm using, I thought, you know what, he's familiar with server stuff, so I'm gonna ask him. And he managed to jump on a call with me and actually fix some of the things, what was going on. So basically, what was happening is, first of all, to get access to that kind of server bit on it, you need to access the web interface. So basically plug a cable in the back of the PC that connects you to your, you know, network, and then from another computer you access the IP address of this PC to like log in and configure everything, the fan curves and things. But it's very, very complicated, and I didn't want to do that for the person who's getting the PC because that's just so complicated to get hold of, and then you have to have another computer to adjust the fan curves on your PC, which just makes no sense to me. And then what we found out was that I couldn't get the PC to connect to my, you know, internet here because the 10 gigabit controller, network controller that's on this PC doesn't really work well with 2.5 and possibly 5 gigabit speeds. So I had a 2.5 gigabit you know, connection through the NAS, and just because of that interface, it just didn't play nice. So it likes 1 gigabit or 10 gigabit, so if you have any of those connections, no problem. If you have 2.5 gigabits, it just wasn't playing nice, and I just, for the life of me, couldn't get it to work. And I was like, what the heck's going on? I know the cable's not, you know, wrong. Anyway, long story short, we figured that out with Marco from Asus store. Thank you, Marco, for helping me. That this is not playing nice, and when I connect the cable straight to the router that has a 1 gigabit port, then suddenly everything's fine and is happening. I didn't want to give the PC to Damien and say that, look, if you want to control any of the fan curves and things, you have to log into the web interface, and it's just super complicated and just very not user-friendly. Then I was thinking, how can we make a way around it? Because I knew that also the motherboard doesn't have any RGB connectors, and I needed to find a way how to control those RGB fans without having any of the connectors on the motherboard. So then what we did was, at first I tried this Cooler Master thing that didn't work out, so it was either broken or just didn't work, so we sent that one back. And then we got the Corsair Commander Pro. So basically this gives us control of the fans as well as the LEDs. And if you are familiar with this Commander Pro, you know that the Corsair like kind of 5-volt A-RGB connectors are completely different than what you usually see on the motherboard. Then I need to figure out a connector that's not very common. Now this is not officially supported by Corsair, but Corsair, you know, kind of winked at me and said, look, if you want to, you can actually, you know, just get some of these third-party connectors. So I've got something here called Easy. So basically this connects from the usual Corsair connector, like 3-pin, to just the usual 3-pin that you see on a motherboard. So I could just connect all of those fans into those two headers and then control the RGB separately, all on the iCUE software of the Corsair. So that also gives the user friendliness of configuring the fan speeds and the RGB on the iCUE software. But I didn't leave everything for the iCUE software, because no matter what happens, you know, with the software, sometimes software crashes. I didn't want that. So the actual CPU fan curves I configured in the like BMC server part of this, where I made a little fan curve that you don't really need to adjust, and I made sure that this always keeps up with the cooling and is fairly quiet, so we don't need to worry about the CPU fan curves that are connected there. But all the other case fans are connected to the Commander Pro, and they're all configured separately. So finally, we have configured the RGB and the fans, which took a long time. Like, it took me a week to figure out what the heck is going on with the server side of this motherboard and things, but we finally figured out. Now the last thing to do is put all the panels back on and then do the cable management on the other side to make sure that, you know, all the cables are nice and neat. Voila, that looks pretty nice over here. I like this bottom bit that actually covers like all the bottom mess, and you can kind of, you know, root it all there and just squish it down there. That's quite nice. But also, I didn't mention this before, but I had to drill one hole through this on the other side, just because when I'm turning the other side, you'll see. So basically, if you see this bit over here, I put like zip ties in there, and I had to pull this down just because otherwise this ATX extension for the, you know, motherboard power was so in front of these fans that it would just block all the airflow to these GPUs. So I wanted to like tuck it in nicely over there. It just looks all much nicer and neater over here. I had to route some of the cables around as well. Final little zip ties to cut off here, and there we go. Okay, I hope you saw how absolutely insane building this PC actually was, and I learned a lot. Lots of interesting things, something that you didn't know. But if you try to build this yourself, that's why some of these workstations will be built by, you know, maybe some of the other guys, but, you know, you have limited options, like if you go to an SI and so on. It's nice to do it DIY because you have a lot of customization options, because often, like if you go to SI, you're very limited. They just build you this, but you can't have these fans, you can't have this storage, that storage. They just give you all of this. But if you do it yourself, you might just have a lot more hurdles to come over. But we did it. This is absolutely fine now. We are also in Windows 10, not 11, because Windows 11 still has a little bit of issues, especially if you're on a Threadripper platform and things. You don't want to like compromise any of this stuff. Let Windows just still figure out their issues and performance stuff. I think this is still the best one for this system to go on Windows 10 until like 2025 or something like that. Then you might upgrade to Windows 11. But until then, I see no reason to upgrade to Windows 11. You're just gonna take a risk of just losing some performance. But I've got my like hardware info open over here. We've got an air cooler there, right? And this is a CPU that pulls 280 watts from the socket. By the way, I've got the camera set up over here to the wattage usage. So at the moment it's idling and it's pulling 285 watts from the socket, as you can see, which is pretty interesting. As you can see, there's my hand down there. So seeing the CPU pulls 109. If we go further down here and see the GPU is pulling 22 here, and then where's our other GPU? There we go. So 26 watts, 24 watts, and so on. Let's go to Task Manager just so I can show you what's going on. 3995WX. This is Look at these, all of these cores and threads. Look at that. That's absolutely insane. 128 threads, okay? 256 gigabytes of RAM. There's 8 DIMM slots. They're all occupied, as you can see. SSD, this one is completely used because I'm running Crystal disk benchmark in the back over there. We have 2 RTX 3090s and they're linked together by this NVlink. Some of the applications can take advantage of the NVlink and, you know, talk to so that the GPUs can talk to each other rather than just going through the CPU to talking to each other and so on, which in some of the render applications is, you know, very much needed. So this is the insane setup that we have. Let's just run the multi-core score and then let's see what happens in here. Okay, I've pressed start. Let's see. CPU 256, 280 watts, and look at that, our CPU runs 55. That's absolutely insane over here. We got a little bit of a lower score just because I think we're still running the Crystal disk benchmark in the background, so I'm gonna let it finish and then we're gonna run this again. I bet we should be hitting somewhere within the 60s now. Look at the wattage there, 465 watts system draw. There we go. Look, 60,000 points in multi-core. That's ridiculous. If you look at the like 12900K, for example, and then we're pulling multi-core score at roughly around 28,000, something like that. And our CPU is 100 degrees. Look, we have maxed out at 64 degrees. This is insane. Just because the die is very massive as well, so the heat gets like spreaded out and then all the cooler, it can do it very nicely. And I've tuned the fan so it's actually very, very quiet and not ramping up because the default was very, very high. I'm gonna do a third test as well because I believe we can get it even higher than the 60,153. Let's have a look. Look at all these 128 threads just working on this render. Boom, boom. Okay, 60,000, it's all right. We've got lots of other things open as well, so I'm not bothered about that. But this is insane score here. Single core score isn't that fast. We're roughly about 1,230 or something like that, 1,300 somewhere just around there, which is just because the Zen 2 architecture, because this is like Ryzen 3000 series still, they don't have as fast single core performance as Ryzen 5000, but this is like insane there. I know Ryzen 5000 Threadripper Pro processors are out at this point as well, but they are not for DIY, so I couldn't just buy a processor and put it in there. Hopefully in the future we have an upgrade for this, and maybe Ryzen like Threadripper Pro 7000 or something like that will be supported for this as well, so we can just slot it in there with like 3D cache, and that would be awesome to get over here. Another thing I want to show you is just the GPU power. So if you go to something like V-Ray, which can utilize 2 of these GPUs together in there, let's have a look at CUDA, and then look, there's RTX 3090. If you take one off and just run one of them at the moment, so let's have a look at this system here. 343 watts there. Okay, as you can see, the second GPU now is 320 watts, absolutely utilized. The other GPU is doing hardly anything. System power draw 657 watts from the socket. Yankee Doodles. Just wait when we put 2 of them at the same time, and I'm going to run the Cinebench in the background as well. Let's see if we can push this past 1000 watts at like stock. This is not overclocked at all in any way. So as you can see, we got 1667 V paths over here, and let's do the test again. And then let's see how well does it scale. So we're gonna do the same test with 2 GPUs now. We're gonna prep this and then look at both of these GPUs on the side, what's gonna happen to them there. Okay, both of them utilized. Oh, 1000 watts already used with this. This is insane. 1 kilowatt used. Like, I'm literally boiling a kettle right now. This is insane. So both GPUs are pulling 340, so we're roughly around 700 there, and then the rest of the system pulls, interestingly, quite a lot still, about 300 watts and idle on top there. That's why we have 1600 watt power supply. Like if you saw the cord here, you saw it on the build video, it's like a massive cord. And as you can see, the scaling of this V-Ray here, this is one program that I can really show you the really good scaling, how the program can utilize both GPUs. Look at that, 3510. So it's pretty much like 2 times what we had previously. So the scaling for 2 of these GPUs is very, very good. Just for the crack of it, let's try running Cinebench at the same time while running that there. Okay, so we're gonna start that one and we're gonna go new tests, CUDA there. Okay, the CPU is going. Now let's press go on these as well. Let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, still only 480 watts pulled from the socket. Wait till this starts. Okay, boom. Here we go. 500, 1100 watts. 1100 watts pulled from the socket. That's absolutely insane. And if you look at the temperatures, we're running very, very good temperatures. Look, maximum temperature, 66 degrees here. Obviously, we're not doing like any long-term renders here, but CPU 70 degrees, like maximum. Come on, we're not even touching the surface of this. The fans are ramping up a little bit now because we're going back-to-back utilization here. But 1150 watts. The power supply fan kicked in now as well, just to like kind of keep it nice and cool. Okay, 3400 at the same time while we're getting roughly, I don't know, 60,000 points on Cinebench. So we have different SSDs in there as well, just to show you some of the, speeds. The C drive, where all the applications and programs are, we're using the Western Digital SN850, which is like one of the best in terms of read and write and small, like random read and write speed. As you can see here, we've got 300 gigabytes used, so the drive is not even empty, and we're still getting 7 gigabytes per second read. That's sequential, and then random read and writes. Look at that, random 4K. We've got 3.4 gigabytes per second. That's like very, very good. If we go to the D drive, which we've actually made together like an interesting configuration of 6 terabytes of each, like 2 drives, 6 terabytes, but both of them consist of different drives. One of them consists of 3 NVMe 2 terabyte FireCuda 530s, and then the other one is 2 FireCuda 530s, but one of them 4 and then 2 terabytes. As you can see, the sequential read speed of those FireCudas are even faster, 7.3 gigabytes per second. Now, as you can see, the write speed of those drives, FireCuda 530s, is very fast as well, 7 gigabytes per second. So this is sequential and so on. But as you can see, the 4K random is not as fast as on the Western Digital one, but these are still super, super fast if you have large libraries or assets for your projects. You put them in one drive, and then the other one is kind of like an active drive where you work on those projects or assets or libraries, whatever you have. So the reason we chose the FireCuda 530s is that they have a sustained, so like you can write on them, actually absolutely hammer them with large files. They're still going to perform very, very well and very, very fast. Now, if you want to know some good people on YouTube who actually test the SSDs, then I highly recommend you check out Tech Testers. She's absolutely amazing at testing those SSDs and NVMEs, and I haven't seen a lot of people who test them so well and actually like compare them to each other. So if you're wanting to like know a good SSD, which one to get, just go check them out. So then the D drive finished here as well. Very good speeds, as you can see on the screen. So that concludes the build and essential benchmarks of this absolutely amazing and different experience to use the Asus WRX80 motherboard and those 2 Asus TUF RTX 3090s in there on NVlink or SLI. It's an insane 3D workhorse. So if you're someone who does a lot of 3D rendering, 3D work, sculpting, using Maya, Arnold, V-Ray, something like that, blended, then this is the type of PC that really works great. Now, if you're wondering how good this is in video editing, for example, Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, I've got those 2 videos coming up. Very interesting results to find out. If you're also wondering, like in terms of the actual benchmarks in photo editing and video editing and some of these usual benchmarks, I have run them, but I'm not sure if I should make the video. Let me know in the comments below if that would be interesting, comparing this to, for example, 12900K system, something like that. How much different is this, 17 grand or 20 grand, $1,000 PC compared to like a 5,000, mainstream PC that you could get? Is this interesting to you? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, thanks guys for watching. Likes if you enjoyed it, subs if you'd like to see more, and I'll leave all the parts in the description below just so you can, click on the part, especially CPU. I dare you to click on the CPU and see, wow, that's an expensive fella. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Bye bye.